Good morning, Melissa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So today we're happy to see each other. It feels weird when the 2 weeks go by.
Yes, it is. It seems too long.
So I'm really excited that we have our guest today, which is Chip Scanlan. He's the author of 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Your Journalism. Now, Melissa, you know Chip better than I do. Of course, I've had the pleasure of speaking with Chip. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Chip.
Well, Chip was introduced to me by another author and someone who works with me also, who's an exceptional writer. And she highly recommended Chip to work on a book focused on journalism. And so I want to say it's been about 3 months, if that. And this wonderful book came out that's been endorsed by Dan Rather. We're very excited because there's so much so much good information around the I want to say the art and the practice of journalism. And so when you focus on journalism, what comes to mind for me, that the big opportunity with this book is to learn to write better and especially tell stories. And Chip is a master at storytelling. So I think that we're going to get a lot of great information on stories and storytelling, because there there's no person out there that I think couldn't benefit from learning and developing their storytelling ability.
Well, let's introduce everyone
Yes.
to Chip.
Okay,
Hey,
hi.
welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm Chip Scanlan. I started out in the news business as a paper boy when I was
Ah.
about 10 years old, delivering the Greenwich, Connecticut Time, and really wanted to be a novelist, actually a rich, famous novelist, but I could never find a help wanted ad that said rich, famous novelist wanted, Will Train. So I became kind of an accidental journalist and stumbled into 22 years of being a beat reporter and a general assignment reporter, a feature writer, an investigative reporter, ultimately a Washington correspondent in D.C. I was, lucky enough to win some awards for my work, which was nice. And so my new book is actually my 13th book. I realized I have in my career written, edited, or co-edited a dozen textbooks, including anthologies of prize-winning journalism, a novel that I wrote with my wife, Catherine Fair, called The Holly Wreath Man,
Mm.
and two college textbooks. But this has been a real, I got to show the book.
Yeah.
Uh, this has been a real exciting thing because journalists have said to me, 33 ways, only 33. And my reaction was, oh my God, how do I come up with 33 ways? And, uh, if you look in the background of my messy bookcase, if you look, you see it says focus, Focus. That's the key to writing well, is to focus, to ask yourself, what's your story really about? Um, so I think, what else can I say? I also write fiction and creative nonfiction, and I am a book coach. I have the great pleasure to be coaching a Norwegian criminologist with his book, and a wonderful writer in New York State who's writing a memoir of essays about her father, who was a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and who was my mentor and best friend.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's I could
Good.
go on, but I won't.
Well, it's really cool. One, we have changed our title to Prosperity Through Publishing. And
Hmm.
one of the things that sort of started this conversation with Melissa and I, we were talking about our worth, how we value ourselves, how then, because of how we value or not really value ourselves, how then do other people value us, or how can we better communicate our value and worth so that individuals respect that? So artists oftentimes are asked to do things for free, and it's like, no, wait a minute. empowering the artist, the writer, to do something that they believe they can, one, charge for it and have a voice, right?
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
love that you're a book coach, because one of the things that you can talk to our audience and folks who are joining in with us on this Tuesday are some of the things that you share with your emerging writers, the ones that you're actually coaching.
Of course. You know, on the subject of prosperity, we had talked about this yesterday,
Yeah.
Saudia. Um, I would like to say that having produced all these books, I am a multimillionaire, but I'm not. You don't make, and let me just preface this by saying I was a golf caddy where I learned to curse, and then I entered the newsroom where F bombs were dropped like scattered paper. So,
This isn't TV.
yeah, so I never made a shitload of money, from these books. But there was still the thrill of publication. There was still the thrill of, with the little novel that Kathy and I wrote. We would get letters from teachers. It was a serialized novel, and they would read it serialized, and it affected a disabled learning class. And so there is a prosperity of exposure and a prosperity of community that you get.
Mm,
And of
mm.
course, I got to say, I generally, now that I say I'm semi-retired. In fact, my family doesn't know how fucking hard I work. I'm back here in the studio apartment that I have, and I work like 12 hours a day, and they have no idea because I'm quiet.
Yeah.
But
That's good. Yes.
I generally don't do things for free anymore.
Good.
When I was a pointer, I was director of the Pointer Institute, which is really one of the world's top schools for professional journalists. It's in St. Petersburg, where I live. Um, I was paid a good salary, and it was wonderful to be able to be generous. But we also did consulting, and we got paid for consulting. And I believe I hate it when writers are asked to do things for free. It's not fair, because the person who's going to publish is going to benefit, and probably monetarily. So, but we do have a little surprise that I'll let Melissa talk about maybe now or later. That is a freebie for all of you who are watching, and I hope you're in the millions. I hope it's like a Super Bowl audience, but it is 8:30 in Chicago and 9:30 in St. Petersburg. So
I love
Here's
that,
the-
Chip. I love
here's-
that. The one thing I'll share, since I have about 30 years in publishing, and I love what you said about prosperity, and we deliberately expanded, our vision and looking at prosperity. I love what you said: prosperity of exposure and prosperity of community. And that's the thing that we've been growing with Networlding, starting last year, and it's turned into this wonderful giving exchange that everybody's sharing. And I know Chip's surprise today is going to be around coaching and giving away. From what I understand, is it a half hour of coaching, Chip, or is it more?
I get up early.
You said nothing was free, but here you go.
Yeah, but in this case, it is.
Yeah.
I get up early in the morning and walk in the pre-dawn darkness by myself with Taylor Swift or Maggie Rogers, who I just discovered. Guys, you've got to listen to Maggie Rogers. She's amazing. And Talking Heads. And I thought to myself, we had said originally a half an hour of coaching, and I thought a half an hour is not long enough. So I don't know how you raffle this off, but whoever wins is going to get a half an hour phone conversation. And if I don't know how to do a Zoom invite, if the person who wins knows how to do a Zoom invite, we can do a Zoom call but it's going to be for an hour. We'll talk for an hour about your writing. And what I will ask is what I ask, you had alluded to this, Saudia. When I'm coaching someone, the first question I ask is, how can I help? And then I shut up, which is what reporters are supposed to do. They're supposed to ask a single question and then shut the fuck up. But they don't. They often keep rattling on out of nerves, but people rush to fill the silence. So I ask, how can I help? And they tell me. And then we sketch out this world we're going to create, this collaborative world we're going to create.
I love that. You know, it's really beautiful, Chip, how one, that you're offering that. And I would say that for anyone who wants to put their raffle in, and we can basically, for anyone who's watching, definitely you can send either an email to Melissa or myself, and we have all of our information up there. And we will absolutely raffle it off for you. We'll put the names and everything in a hat, choose a person, and let that be. And then we'll connect them to you. So individuals, I would encourage who are watching, put your name in the hat right now. Say, hey, I'd like to sign up by clicking in the chats, and we'll place your comment here with us. You know, speaking on asking people, how can I help? And I love that you do that, because as creatives, we come from a place of wanting to build community, wanting to foster relationships among each other. And I think that the best stories come out of, in fact, I'm reading a book right now as I'm doing an audiobook, where collaboration is literally key in business and in your relationships, right? Mm-hmm. And what comes out of that, the more people you have that are telling stories or sharing their experience, the wealth of the story, I mean, the more rich it becomes, right? So it looks like we have a comment. Let me take a look here and see. Let's add it. Let's show. We've got Robert Burns, who says, it's nice to hear your voices and opinions. This is my first time hearing your voices. I appreciate the book that you sent years ago, Melissa. Thanks. Thanks, Robert.
Thank
Hi,
you,
Robert.
I appreciate that I sent a book years ago.
Which book was it, Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to chat so we'll know which book you're referring to. Go ahead, Melissa.
What I was going to say is I was pondering this morning about writing, and what came up for me, which I'd love to hear about from you, Chip, because you're working on a memoir too. And what's the title of the memoir? Your memoir?
Well, right now it's called Hello, Goodbye.
It is? Hello, Goodbye?
Yeah, it's a crappy title. It's a working title.
We'll work on that one. It's so
I know.
good. But explain what
I
it's
should
about.
say I don't have a title.
Well, okay, hello, goodbye.
Can I jump in something?
It is the story. It is the story of a hapless Peace Corps volunteer in a remote village in French West Africa in the early 70s, also known as Bumfuck Nowhere. I mean, it was the closest American was 200 miles away. The French were not friendly. It was they were really unfriendly. The natives, I shouldn't say the natives, the villagers. I lived in a village called Savalou, which was, I was told, the birthplace of voodoo. It probably was one of the birthplaces of voodoo. I mean, there were witch doctors that came around my house and rattled their things. But it was a former French colony. And so the natives could not conceive that what they called me, a yovo, which translated in their language, fond, as peeled banana. They could not conceive that I would want to be friends. So I only made one great friend, Donker Chonika, who was a primary school teacher and who kept telling me, Chip, you need a woman.
So wait, Chip, I'm going to stop you because
I know I didn't get one. Let's talk about the book. I've got an elevator pitch and everything. Come on, man.
So we're going to do this, but I want to point something out, and we've got the chats are lining up. So we're going to share some of what people are saying here. I want to catch something really quick that's magical that people saw you two do as publisher and as writer. Yes, start with a working title. It's important because it guides your process. So thank you, Chip. Yeah, start with one. You might not have that final title, but that at least keeps you going. It motivates you. And then, like you said, the story's juicy. You've got it. So what I would encourage is that people who are listening to this, get ready for the book because it's coming. Right?
This book is so good.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I published a newsletter on Substack called Chip's Writing Lessons. And this is another free offer. If you subscribe to Chip's Writer's Lessons as a free user, okay, Substack offers writers the option to comp forever, which I love. It's so Vegas, right? It allows me to make a free user a paid user. And by doing so, you will receive the extras package that the paid folks get. And every 2 weeks, that includes an ongoing excerpt from my memoir. The way I'm writing my memoir is I'm, in effect, serializing it by promising myself every extras package, I will have a part of this memoir. I've been blocked on this memoir for 50 years. I could not write it because it was not, I was not,
You're not ready.
I was not the classic successful Peace Corps volunteer. You know, I quit. And it was a source of guilt and shame that prevented me from writing about this. And it was only in the last year or so that I realized, you know something? I wasn't the only one that failed. The Peace Corps failed me. I mean, I got no support from the administration. There were 3 people in charge in the Capitol. I never saw them. There were only 63 volunteers in the country. The director should have come and said, so how's it going? The assistant director, at least. The nurse came once and gave me a shot. You know, I mean, nowadays, the Peace Corps is so much more sophisticated. They have psychologists. They bring volunteers together and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And, you know, if you're feeling like, you know, I want to go home. I read this one comment. This woman said, you know what? If you really, really want to go home, then you should go home.
Yeah.
And I was so acutely lonely that I couldn't stand it. I promised myself I would not quit until I finished. I was a school teacher. I taught English as a foreign language for little kids and high school students.
I have your title.
You like my title now?
I do.
Well, you know, that's the only thing I taught them. You say yes, I say no.
Okay, you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Escape from Loneliness.
Oh, I think that's a subtitle.
Well, you don't necessarily have subtitles for your memoirs, but
hey, no,
the loneliness thing just grabbed me. And one other thing, because I really have to hear it from you. Adjectives. You have so many exquisite adjectives peppered throughout your stories that, you know, it taps all the senses, you know, sight, sound, taste. I mean, I felt like I was there, and in pain too. So every time you go back and you talk about that book, that's what bubbles up for me, is this loneliness, and you escaped it, which is, it's like a double entendre because there was so much shame from it too.
Yeah, there was.
Anyway, that's my contribution for whatever.
Can we talk about my book now?
Absolutely.
Oh, the 33 ways.
Let's talk about 33 ways. See, Chip, you have so much experience and you have so much yumminess. So let's talk about 33 ways. And while we do that, I'm going to start posting some of these comments because they're coming in. They're flying in.
Okay. So my book is, and I've written it out. Okay. So some things I have to write out, and it's short, but it is a succinct, authoritative, and encouraging handbook of practical and inspiring tools and techniques and values that journalists, whether they're students or newsroom veterans, need more than ever in our fractured and fact-tossed democracy. And broadcast legend Dan Rather was, God, I can't believe it, was generous enough to send me this line: excellent for journalists of all ages and experience. And that's on the cover. It's a survival manual because the news industry has been and is in free fall, and the profession is under assault, and journalists are often thrown into their craft with the most rudimentary understanding of what it means to be a journalist in a democracy. So I have to applaud and thank Melissa, because, you know, she said 500-word chapters. And of course, I was used to writing 10,000-word stories as a feature writer. So it was like 500 words, but it was a fantastic discipline. And so these are short, fact-packed chapters that remedy that. And the thing is, it is slim enough,
Yeah.
as I've put it, it is slim enough to slip in a reporter's jacket pocket or a purse. Although, as one woman said,
That's what I was looking for.
well, as one woman said, "Well, what about my really, fancy purse?" I said, "Well, take a bigger one." But the thing that I'm excited about it treats the what you would think of as the usual subjects, such as plagiarism and fabrication and ethical decision making, but it also talks about how to let fear not stop you, because fear dogs journalists. In the book is a quote from a columnist for the Washington Post who says, "People would be amazed to know how horrifically, painfully shy most journalists are." She was on the campaign trail. She said, "I give myself an M&M every time I talk to a real human being." So it's also about combating writer's block, and there are step-to-step guides for the writing process and interviewing and reviewing and bringing it up to date. There's a chapter on multimedia and data journalism. Um, it's, it's, I honestly believe, and this is the other thing, this is my goal. I set for myself a goal. I'm a goal maker. It is my goal that this book get in the hands of every reporter, editor, journalism student, journalism professor, and writing coach, because I really do think the lessons are vital right now where we are in this country. People ask me a lot about, so what do you think of journalism today? And they say things like, "I'm sure we're not going to be on the same page." And I think one of the problems about journalism today is that people confuse it. They watch cable, right?
Yeah.
And what they see on cable, when it's not, the drone strike that killed bin Laden's successor yesterday, where everybody just does hard news and everybody goes, "Okay, I believe that. I believe that. That's true. Yep, I got it." But then they segue to talking heads, and those are opinion makers. And when I think of journalism, I think of myself and others who are in their 20s and 30s, and who are in small towns or middle towns or cities, and they are covering school boards. They are covering the police. They're covering the fire department. They're covering the zoning board. And the tragedy is that in the last 15 years, a toxic blend of economic, political, and technological forces has wiped out 1,800 newspapers,
Yeah.
um, tens of millions of readers, and tens of millions of readers, and tens of thousands of journalism jobs. There are what are called news deserts in this country, where there are communities, big and small, that have no news organization. And journalists, you know, I didn't go to journalism school when I started. I wrote my way onto a paper by using what were my novelistic skills, although I was telling a true story. And I got a job at a paper called the Milford Citizen, and it was so bad in town that it was known as the Shitison.
Wow.
But I began to learn my craft, and I then went to Columbia Graduate School of Journalism, where I did not learn my craft, and that's not a knock on them. Melvin Mencher, my mentor, who's 95, just wrote his memoir and is in the book. I interviewed him for the book, and he taught me what it meant to be a journalism in a democracy, which is to pay attention to the institutions that govern and control people's lives. That's the role of a journalist. And it
Question.
is also, yes, Saudia.
So I'm hearing, and I want to make sure I'm tracking with you. What I'm hearing also is it sounds like the difference is also the truth, based on data, based on facts.
Yes, exactly. It is, um, you know, journalists traffic in facts that are verifiable. Younger journalists have trouble with this sometimes. They want to write their opinion, and they're welcome to do it on the opinion pages. But when you're writing a news story, your stories have to be girded by verifiable facts. And so the questions that you ask, I work for Neiman's Storyboard, which I recommend to people who are interested in wonderful writing. It's Nieman. It's not like the Dallas store. It's Nieman, and it's at Harvard. And I do long form interviews with long form writers. I basically pepper them with make 75 questions. And the questions are like, how did you know that? How did you find that out? Why do you say that? And sometimes I worry they're going to be offended, but they always come back. Well, in the most recent case, it was the story, a Rolling Stone exclusive called The Miracle Boy of Surfside.
Hmm.
Jonah Handler, who was the first person rescued from the Champlain Tower South that collapsed last June, killing 98 people. Sadly, he was holding hands with his mother and they couldn't get her free.
Mm.
She was the first person declared dead. And this reporter, Matt Sullivan, was there, but had to go back to New York. But he couldn't remember. He said, how could you not remember Jonah? So when he got back to New York, he had a new desk and a whiteboard, and he just wrote on it in big letters, Jonah. And eventually he got in touch with the lawyer, the family's lawyer, and the guy said, well, yeah, maybe they'll talk to you. He immediately hit send on a 3,400 word email pitch, and he got exclusive access. But here's the thing. I said, how were you able to describe this rescue? You described this rescue as if you were there. And he said, I watched in slow motion the Facebook videos of Jonah's rescue 30 times. My God, 30 times. And he did this on and on. And at the last minute, literally 48 hours before the print run, he gets the Freedom of Information request with all the call logs from the fire department. So he has all the chat. And they basically have to redo the story in 48 hours. So if you go to you have to subscribe to Rolling Stone to read the story. But if you go to Neiman's Storyboard, if you go to Google and Google Neiman's Storyboard, Chip Scanlan, Matt Sullivan, you will come up with what's called an annotation. And there'll be an introduction and then a brief Q&A and then the entire effing story.
Got
The
it.
entire,
That's amazing.
it is. And it's Matt telling you how he did this amazing story. And the guy who started as an editor, Melissa, he was an editor for big writers at Esquire and New York Times Magazine, and only recently has got into writing. He is, I don't know if I have met a lot of thorough reporters, but I don't know if I've ever met anyone as insanely thorough as he. And basically, he can write these things as if they were novels because they are girded by verifiable fact. And that's what journalists track in. And that's the state of journalism today. When you
And
read the New York Times, when you read the Washington Post, when you read the LA Times, when you read the Chicago Tribune, when you read some of the small papers, they're going to be pretty thin. But I mean, my wife yesterday, I asked her, did she read the story? And I said, yeah. Well, did you read it on the New York Times? She said, no, I got it on my news feed. And I thought, wow, okay. So she didn't even have to subscribe to the New York Times.
so check it out, right? So I recommend that, individuals, this is powerful. And now I have Matt like in my head, right? In terms of his ability to really capture. And I think, wow, that's powerful. And that's something that's very valuable is the truth. And individuals who are seeking it, looking for it, and how can you then, in a sense, bring more truth to your work as a writer, or maybe you're a novelist. But here's the point. I'm going to put your book back up there because we're coming to our 9 o'clock hour here, and 9 o'clock Central. It's 10 o'clock where you are. Any last things you want to mention, Melissa or Chip? The book's going to cover the screen, but we want everybody to see it.
Well, what I'll say is Chip is such a integral part of our community, and the reason that I came up with the idea for the 33 Ways series. So you can go to 33waysseries.com and check out all the books there. And there are 6 now, and there'll be 6 more coming out. And it's just such a wonderful trip, I think. I like to call this series All the Stuff and Not the Fluff. and and I have a vision of this series running into the hundreds, and it's a magical series, and I can't say enough good things about the experts that have come to me looking to write a series. And I love and appreciate what you said, Chip, about it gives you such discipline to write 500 words per way, but everybody's looking for the faster, the better, the tighter, the stronger. And I think these books are delivering in a way that's wonderful. And again, just calling out you, Saudia, for your 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Creative Entrepreneurship. I don't see entrepreneurship in any other way but creatively. So it's quite a read, and people love it, and the stories are fantastic. So I welcome everyone to check out a 33 Ways book. They're so affordable, and I do believe they will deliver prosperity and help you get into content creation. So you'll be publishing too, sooner or later.
Well, thank you, Melissa. I mean, this has just been an awesome opportunity to, share publicly some of our conversations and how it keeps us inspired in the work that we do, whether it's writing or creating content. It in our community that Melissa mentioned, Networlding, and our great exchange, where we as creatives come together and we under one umbrella. Like Don said earlier, we come together and we support each other, and we create that community that is so essential. So thank you, Chip, for joining us on this ride, this conversation today. And we encourage individuals, please leave us a comment. You can watch these series after it's been live on Redwood Cove Media, which is on YouTube. And we will send out a now streaming live so you can share with your friends. And for those of you who would like Chip's offer, what is it again, Chip?
It is a 1-hour phone or Zoom call. If you know how to send a Zoom invite, I don't know how to do one. Maybe I'll try to learn it. But we can Zoom or we can call, and it'll be great. And the first question I'm going to ask is, how can I help? And I'm really looking forward to meeting whoever it is. And this has been fantastic. Saudia, Melissa, this has been one of the coolest things that has happened in my life in a long time. It really has. It is just the coffee shop I go to, they sell something called jet fuel. It's just with brown sugar. I don't drink it. But I feel like this has been jet fuel for my writing. It really has. So thank you.
Thank you. And it comes with lots of friendships and love. So
yeah.
Definitely.
So everybody go out there and take off.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Prosperity through publishing.